Welcome to the Gigs Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Sanz, founder and CEO of Gigs, the professional career platform for the live event industry. On this podcast, we are interviewing the very best in the touring and live event industry to hear about the good, the bad, the unreal moments of touring and life on the road. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Jim Yakabuski, a veteran live audio engineer with 43 years of experience. Jim has mixed front of house for iconic artists such as No Doubt, Shania Twain, Matchbox 20, Gwen Stefani, Rob Thomas, Peter Frampton, and many more. He has worked on massive events like the Super Bowl and Coachella and is currently the audio director for U.S. live productions at Solotech. Jim, welcome to the Gigs Podcast.
Thank you very much.
So excited to hear. 43 years of experience. Take us back to your first gig. What led you to pursue and maintain a career in this industry?
First gig was in Vancouver, Canada, 1981. I had just exited about 6 months of recording school at the Columbia School of Broadcasting. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in live sound, and it's a funny story with the first day. Feedback all over the place. It's a total train wreck. Everything's going.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
For a non-audio person, what feedback is, what's happening when that's happening?
Yeah, so I didn't know enough then to ask for the right equipment. We actually bought a lot of the equipment that we used on that that band at the time. Mm-hmm. So the floor toms, the drum kit didn't have any. We had no gates. We had so a noise gate is something.
I need that. Yes.
Yeah. So noise gate kind of opens when you hit the drum and then closes back up again. So the sound of the drum comes out, but then the rest of the drum kit doesn't bleed into that microphone the whole time. So,
gotcha.
So, drummer didn't know how to tune the drums. I didn't know how to EQ the PA. I mean, it was a mess. And after the first set, I was standing there scratching my head, and the band comes up and they're like, "Wow, it's kind of rough. Like, what's going on out here? Lots of feedback." And I said, yeah, I just don't know, because I had only learned studio, so I didn't really know about feedback.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really a musician. I was sort of a...
Do you get feedback in a studio?
You can.
But it's less frequent?
Yeah, like feedback in the studio world is more like a guitar player letting a chord ring so that it feeds back in their speakers for an effect you want, not... In live music, feedback's not good.
It's a shriek, yeah?
Yeah, it's a shriek, squeal. Or it's like a low droning sound that can happen. Like if a floor tom on the drum kit is and there's maybe some big wedge speakers, and you hit the floor and it starts to just vibrate, and it'll just sit there and do that. So that was my first night. So that was happening a lot.
Yeah.
And these two long hairs come walking out of the crowd up to the soundboard and said, "Man, we're noticing you're having a lot of feedback, and we're kind of looking at your gear, and you don't have an equalizer." And
is that a nice way of saying "bless your heart"?
Yeah, bless your heart. This is the Canadian version of bless your heart. So they said, we noticed you don't have an equalizer. What's that all about? Because that's what they would say. So they said, we're just rehearsing around the corner. We have a little storage locker there. We can get you an equalizer, if you want. And I looked at these guys and I said, I don't see how that's going to help. And so
Day one, baby.
I wrote a book in 2000 about live sound, and that's actually the forward to my book. Was this was my first night, and things have gotten much better since then. So
well, okay, so I'm watching a concert, someone who doesn't know anything about it, and you hear that feedback. Should everyone's head turn to front of house? Is that where it goes?
They usually do, but hopefully they're yelling at the lighting guy, and the lighting guy is like,
"No, it's him.
It's that guy over there." Yeah, because
I don't know what's the venue. Okay, that's always interesting. And so, okay, in that moment, you get years of experience under your belt. That's happening, and it's the show's happening. What do you do? Where do you go first? What control first do you go to?
It depends. Like you said, is it a shriek or is it a drone? Or I worked for a band in the late '80s called Faith No More, and the singer was crazy. Like he would get to the edge of the drum riser and then jump 10 feet in the air and land microphone first into the wedges.
Oh my gosh.
And they would just squeak. And I remember, I started to catch that, and I would see that he's going to do that, and I'd pull it back. And he came up to me one night and said, "Hey, how come it's not feeding back anymore when I do that?" And I go, "Well, because I'm controlling that. I'm stopping that from happening." He goes, "Oh no, that's on purpose." Like,
oh my gosh.
So I had to cut a financial deal with him that for every speaker that we blew up because he stuck his mic in it, we'd put it on his tab, and he goes, "Oh, that's fine." He just wanted the feedback. So
some artists smash guitars, some just try to blow up stereos. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so that's great. First lesson learned, feedback, no idea what's going on. Then what was next for you? Where did you hop next to want to keep doing this?
Yeah. So that was week 1, and then week 2 and 3 were still pretty rough. And maybe by month 2, we were doing a show in Prince George, British Columbia, a very small little town, and the bar we were in was known for having a fatal stabbing every 2 weeks. That was the kind of bar that we were playing in. And someone came up to us after our set and said, "Hey, there's a really awesome bar right up the street. You guys should go and check it out. Just tell them you're with the band here and they'll let you in." So we went. It was called the Rock Pit. I remember this very clearly. And we all went in there, and I remember walking through the doors and hearing a good mix for the first time. I remember just going, because my mixes were not good at all, but I remember walking in and just going, "Oh, that's it. That's the way it's supposed to sound." Like the bass was big and round, and the highs were crisp, and you could hear everything. And I remember, this is all kind of corny, but I remember that night going, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." Like,
wow.
And I went and I talked to the sound man, and I said, "Hey, I'm up at the bar with the fatal stabbings every 2 weeks." I said, "Do you think you could come and show me some stuff? Because I don't know what I'm doing." And so he did. And that was kind of, I'll never forget that. And so as my career went on, I remember thinking, I want to teach someone someday, I want to give that back.
And that's an incredible experience. You clearly have the ears for it. You clearly had the ears of, I'm not totally getting it. Can you talk more about the sound you heard and what all sound engineers are trying to strive to get that, the crispness, the cleanness. I know with sound you have to use colors, and it's hard to describe sound, but can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. I think, if you go to a concert, a country show is going to sound a little different from a hip hop show, or a pop show from a symphony. But so I think every genre of music has a slightly different perfect goal. But if you walked around at CMA Fest here in town and just saw every band, I think the lay listener would just say, "Oh yeah, that sounds about right." It's a generous amount of low end. The bass drums thumping, the bass guitars is filling in all the foundation, and then guitars, keyboards, vocals, all just nicely balanced and nice and crisp and clear. And the PA systems these days, and the mixing boards, and all the gear these days gives you that much easier than it did 38 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine technology. And we're definitely going to get into that.
Yeah.
I remember going to a show at the Basement East, and I think it was a new guy mixing, and it sounded good, but the singer, it just was hard to understand. It wasn't clear. It sounded like something was muffled and blurry, and I was frustrated the whole time. I have no idea how to fix it, but I was like, something is just wrong.
Yeah.
So when, let's say, And we'll get into other things. Sorry, I think I'm just really curious. Say the singer themselves, like whatever's going on, it's just as something's not clear. What do you do on a console to brighten it up?
Yeah. Well, there's usually 4 bands of equalization on a channel strip, and there's lows, low mid, highs. So I like to think, and I like to teach this to students too, is like, don't get technical right away. What is your brain telling you? Is there too much bass? Turn the bass down. Is there not enough highs? Turn the highs up, and make gentle moves like that until it starts to sound more like what you think it should sound like.
Wow, and it's really just doing how it's sounding, and kind of feeling it as you're going.
Yeah.
There's not one move. It's just
right.
Wow.
And the thing about experience in sound is that after a while, you just know what to start chipping away at to make it better. Because, I can go out and hear a band that's, 16 channels of instruments in a bar, and I can kind of tell you in 3 minutes how I could make that better. Wow. But
you're performing too. I mean, everyone working the show is performing just as the band is.
Sure.
Can you kind of talk about that dance of during a show? I mean, you are a part of the performance. Are there parts of the show that you're like, okay, this can now get louder or softer? Do you get to be creative with it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when I go back and listen to the studio album, maybe a couple months into the tour, I'll realize that I kind of learned the song from the record, but I've kind of made it my own. Like, I know where to turn the guitar up for a little chunk that jumps out of the mix, and live is, I mix mostly rock bands, pop bands, so there's still guitar solos in that kind of music. A lot of music has no guitar solos anymore, right. But yeah, that's like a moment where you can just really crank it up for 30 seconds and get the audience super excited, and the effects that were on the record, you can maybe make it even more exciting live by having a cool reverb explosion on a floor tom or something to bring something out. So yeah, there are some artists who will say, just like the record, don't go out of your lane, just do this. But most bands, they just want to hear their friends come back and say, wow, it sounded great out there. And then it. You've done your job,
That's true. I think that so much of the pressure is on you guys. There can be a lighting mistake, something goes off. People have no idea. I mean, everything could go black and they would think that's maybe part of the show.
Right.
But if they hear something off, I mean, that is the show. You're listening to music. So pressure's on for you guys.
Yeah.
I want to get into how you started working. So you're in Canada.
Yeah.
How then did you start working for bands like Van Halen, Matchbox 20? Take me through that journey for you.
Yeah, I got like year 4 or 5, I started to say, okay, what's next? I don't want to just go from bar to bar and work for these bands that didn't have record deals and they were just cover bands. And I started sending resumes out on cocktail napkins, basically, to, or just on paper with pen, writing to all the sound companies, the big sound companies in Canada, thinking, okay, somebody does Bryan Adams and somebody does, Street Heart and all these cool Canadian bands. I want to work for the companies that tour with them, because then I'm going to be in arenas and on big speakers and all that. So I sent 6 or 7 resumes out and letters of application, kind of. Didn't get a peep, nothing back at all. And so I was getting discouraged, and I was mixing in this bar in Vancouver, and this waitress goes by with a tray of drinks with a T-shirt that says DB Sound on it. And I said, hey, cool shirt. Where'd you get your shirt? And she just totally thought I was hitting on her or something. And she just gave me this snobby look. And at the end of the night, I was packing up all my stuff, and she comes by and she goes, I'm sorry, I was super rude to you earlier. She goes, yeah, I'm dating one of the owners of the company. And I said, oh, she goes, but all the sound guys always want my shirt because it says DB on it. And I said, no, I want a job.
Yeah.
To introduce me to your boyfriend. So she did. And I asked her to bug him once a month until he hired me. And she did. She called him and every month said, hey, what about that guy Jim from Vancouver? He really wants to do this. And so one day I get a call and I'm down working at Summerfest in Milwaukee. And that was kind of the introduction to working in the States. And
I really hear it all now. I mean, just get to the owner's wife or girlfriend.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a whole new way to get a job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it worked. And then, it honestly took me a couple years to stay in the States because I didn't have paperwork and so I had to work for tours that had, that were international where they could put me on a visa list or something. And then, I was back in Canada working for a bar band again, feeling kind of down on things. And I went and saw Aerosmith in Edmonton, which DB Sound was doing the sound for them. And one of the engineers who had kind of mentored me a lot came up and said, do you want to do monitors for these guys? And I'm like, yes, please.
Wow.
And he said, I'm out of here. He says, they won't let us drink. He says, I'm 40 years old. No one's going to tell me I can't have a beer. So he left, and that was my in to working for huge bands.
My gosh.
Just like that. Yeah.
This industry is wild.
I know.
I can't have my beer. Do you want to just take my job? That's crazy.
I know.
So can you talk about difference between monitors and front of house then?
Yeah. So back in those days, it was all wedge speakers all over the stage. Nobody had in-ear monitors back then. This was 1990.
So basically they're listening to the music on the stage with these speakers instead of hearing it in their ear.
Right.
So I'm getting it real dumbed down. Okay.
So wedges and side fills, that was the
Got
thing.
it.
So that you'd put a big stack of speakers on either side of the stage to send kind of a generic mix of the whole band, so it felt kind of bigger. But if you've never stood on a stage without ear monitors and without wedges and listened to yourself playing just through the main speakers, it is chaos. You can't hear anything. So that was how it was all done back then.
So then you have the wedges, but then that's why most people have hearing loss, because I can imagine how loud it had to be to, wow.
Yeah. And they got loud, and there was certain monitor engineers known back then for making it just ripping loud. That was like their trademark was, you want it really loud on stage, I'm the guy.
So you stepped in Aerosmith to do monitors, which were those wedge speakers on the stage. What year did things turn into in-ears?
Mid-90s, I think.
Okay.
That's a great question, and I can't just pull that one out of my
Was it to save their ear or their hearing, and then also each individual on the stage will then get a different mix, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And back in those days you could still give people their own mix. That Aerosmith tour was actually interesting because what they wanted to move around the stage all over the place, wherever they wanted to go, and they wanted their mix to follow them.
Oh my gosh.
So we had all these clumps of wedges, like downstage, center, stage right, upstage. Then there was this big walkway in the back, and if they went up there, and so our job was to just like follow them around, sending their mix to the various monitor speakers. So, but yeah, you're right. Like now, I mean, some of the detail that's in modern in-ear mixes sounds as good, if not better, than a record. It's amazing.
And don't engineers also pull in some of the audience sound too, so that they can experience that?
Yeah.
Too cool.
Cool. And modern Steven Tyler, he has somebody who just mixes his audience mics for him. So as he's walking around, if somebody's yelling something over here, he wants to hear what that person is screaming. So that mic has to be turned up. Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's,
okay. What a job.
Yeah.
What a job. And all these, geez. Okay, so you do this Aerosmith, and then after that, do you stay on the arena tour size?
Yeah, that was kind of the, getting to the top of the hill. And then, so from there, I got hired by Poison in the same year. And that was interesting. And then the tour manager for Poison, who I just talked to on the phone yesterday, because we still stay in touch, he was going to do this new band, but he couldn't tell me who it was. But he said, I just got hired. It's not 100% done, but when I get the deal done, like next week, I'm bringing you in as the monitor guy.
Wow.
And I got the call a week later and says, do you want to do Van Halen? And I was like, oh my gosh. So This was all in 1 year. Like this was my year, 1990 to 91. And then...
so you're mixing monitors for
monitors,
them
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at this point it was all monitors. And I honestly... I had, this dream audio guy's life, but I wasn't fulfilled because I really wanted to be out there. I wanted to be mixing for the audience. So,
wow.
So after that 91 Van Halen tour, I started a little mission of hitting up managers and hitting up production people like, hey, I don't care if it's a small band. I just want to go mix front of house. So,
how are the experiences different for you?
Like you said earlier, can we be artistic, and can we put our own little spin on it? When you're the front of house engineer, if everyone thinks it sounds cool out there, if the manager's standing next to you and everyone just thinks it's sounding great, you can kind of do what you want. Mm-hmm. When you're the monitor engineer, you are definitely giving them what they're asking for. Or I know some monitor engineers that are super creative, and they come up with beautiful sounding studio kind of mixes, and the artists love it. Mm-hmm. But there are some artists who just want, cowbell just taking their head off, the click drag. Yeah, exactly. And, like their mix to the normal person would just be horrible. Like it's like all their guitar, the click track, cowbell, super loud, and maybe no singer. It's weird. So, So for some people, they just want to hear what they want to hear. But yeah, one of my kind of analogies of being a front of house mixer is I get the best seat in the house, dead center, usually a nice distance away from the stage. I get to hear beautiful stereo sound system, and I never have to listen to cowbell. Because most click tracks on people's Pro Tools and stuff these days, whenever they have tracks going or they have to stay on a tempo, it's usually a cowbell that is the click track, and it's not fun to listen to.
You don't want to hear that.
No,
it's not a George Lopez episode.
That's right.
That is, wow, what a cool. So then do you get to, and also you're behind the stage or under the stage or side stage when you are doing monitors. Yeah. So you get there, you get to be more creative. When you're doing monitors, are you working directly for the artist, or are you still with the production company?
Usually on a tour, you're hired by the artist.
And same with front of house engineer?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But a lot of times, maybe an artist is just breaking, they're just getting their first chance to tour, and they'll say, hey, can your audio crew provide us a monitor engineer for front of house? So then it's kind of the production company taking care of it. Or a lot of festivals are like that, actually, where the bands just show up. They don't have engineers, and the people from the sound company will do it. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just talking about you get to do front of house then.
Yeah.
So then was that the moment for you, or did you have multiple moments of like, this is the coolest job, I want to do this forever?
Yeah, I definitely, by that point, I was feeling that almost every day, that whole like, wow, this is really happening, especially when I came to the States. Working in Canada for bar bands, and I mean, every year I realized how much better I was at it. I was getting to work for bands that made more money, and I was finally starting. I made $25 my first week as a sound engineer. That was my net take home, was $25.
Music industry.
Yeah. So now I'm, working for these Canadian bands and I'm starting to make more, and that's all great. But my second night ever in the States working at Summerfest, I was just part of the audio crew for the rock stage. And the closer on day 2 was Bon Jovi. So I'm like, I'm not texting my family because no one texted back then. This was 85, 86. But I remember calling my family and going, "Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable! What's happening?"
Wow.
So just all those years between 86 and 90, I mean, it was all just a huge dream come true. But I remember a specific moment in 93. So I want to tell you the story about how I got the Van Halen front of house job too. But it's like, week 3 and we're playing at Alpine Valley in Wisconsin. I don't know if you've heard about that venue, but it was an old place that everyone went all the time. And basically the stage was at the bottom of a ski hill.
Oh, great. And
so the lodge is like behind the stage and the stage is there, and front of house is, 100 feet out. And then it just goes up and up and up and up and up. Like it's a ski hill. And you can cram as many people in there as you can get. So
it's a fun load in.
Yeah. So I'm mixing the show, and still kind of nervous. I'm getting to mix this amazing band, and the crowd blinder lights come on, and the whole audience gets lit up. And I just remember looking over my shoulder up the hill. I just see people as far as the eye can see, and I remember distinctly saying to myself, I'm mixing Van Halen. Like I had that moment of like, this is really happening. And
Wow. So. And the pinch me moments are why you made $25 for a week for a while. It's for those moments.
Yeah.
And you are a part of the magic of that. You're mixing it for the crowd.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how the crowd has no idea what you're doing.
Right.
It's just these people that are standing behind a board. They have no idea.
Right.
That's incredible. So from Van Halen, where did you go next?
I managed to stay at front of house for pretty much the whole time after that.
Great.
I remember working. So I did the 91 tour. And then after that tour, I ended up doing a few smaller tours, but still front of house. And then I got hired by Extreme, which was another one of my absolute favorite bands to work for. And that was a great experience. We did about 2 months in Europe opening for Aerosmith again, which was kind of cool.
Whoa.
So now I'm working for the other band that's opening for them. And then we did all the big festivals. That was another one of those moments where there's 85,000 people and you're mixing for, and pretty incredible.
Incredible. I want to hear about, maybe that first night when you had a bunch of feedback, but was there any other show where you had some experience under your belt and you made a really big mistake?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I'm trying to think of oh, yes. Here's a good one. Aerosmith again. Wow.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it's my first day mixing Extreme. And we're opening for them in this kind of soccer stadium kind of thing in Europe. And we didn't get a sound check. So I had to line check, meaning headphones on, and the drummer plays the drums not through the speakers. I'm just listening in headphones and trying to dial things in. And I changed my routing that day to where instead of going straight from the channel to the master, which then goes to the speakers, I ran it through groups first. Can't remember why I did that, but I did that. So the show goes to start. I unmute all the inputs and nothing's coming out of the PA.
Oh my gosh.
The band's up there playing and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And then I kind of realized what I had done, and I started reassigning all the inputs one by one back to the master bus. So you hear the kick drum, now you got the snare, now you got the hi-hat, and it goes through all the instruments, and one by one they all come back into the PA, and the crowd was, kind of letting me know how experienced and talented I was at that moment. And then I think one of my other favorite goof-ups ever was, it was a corporate event, and it was for like an insurance company or something, and they ran us ragged. Like we were doing 15-hour days of rehearsals and on and on and on. And I had one of those instant replay playback things to do all the introductions to the speakers, and then also their walk-on music, right?
Got it.
So at some point, I kind of ran out of available spaces, so I started moving things around. So the CEO goes to start his thing, and he's like kind of this corny, stiff guy, and he says, "Hey, I want my play on music to be "Bad to the Bone" by George Thorogood," and I'm just
cool guy.
I'm like, "Yeah, man, I got that for you." so somehow in all the programming, I had goofed something up. So the stage manager, the show caller, says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our CEO, Bob Jenkins." And I go to play "Bad to the Bone," and I hit the button, and it says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will begin in 10 minutes," something like that. So that was a classic moment. And my little headset is blowing up with the guy going, "Bad to the bone, bad to the bone." And I'm trying to find it, and he says, "Play any kind of music, anything." So,
man.
Bad.
Well, it's two things with that. First of all, corporate, you get paid a whole lot better, and you want to take a corporate gig, but then you got more pressure, and you got a lot, working longer days, maybe a lot of people who don't know anything that you're doing, telling you to do a whole lot of things that might not be the best way to do things. So that's difficult. But did you ever make those mistakes again, or did you learn?
No,
right there?
I don't think so. Corporate. Like you said, it's very much. Somebody once said, "It's not how it sounds; it's when it sounds." Like you just don't miss cues in corporate, because it's so crucial to their 6 months of planning and all the millions that they've spent on getting all the attendees there and stuff, and they just expect the production people not to make a mistake. So
good enough sound is all that matters.
That's right. Yeah.
On time. Not perfect sound.
That's right.
Noted. Very interesting. Wow, those are great stories. All right, so you're doing front of house for all these artists and loving life. When did you decide to get a corporate job?
Just the touring life of months away at a time. Especially back then. Like touring these days seems to be much shorter spans. Like a tour might be 6 weeks in the States, and then maybe you go to other continents. But it's last year with Matchbox 20, we did a 4 month, almost 4.5 months, counting rehearsals to the end of the tour straight. Woof. No break in the middle, nothing. It was just like,
wow,
3 or 4 days a week, and then you have a day off. But so I think corporate seemed to be a way to be home more. Mm-hmm. In reality, you still travel a lot, especially if you live in, let's say you live in Detroit, or a city that is not a big tourist place. Mm-hmm. You're always going to Orlando, you're always going to Nashville, you're always going to Dallas, you're going to some place that attendees want to go for their or
corporate retreat.
Yeah, and you can go all the way to Hawaii, and you think, I'm going to Hawaii, and you see the same ballroom for 5 days. You never get outside, So, so the whole thing of not traveling as much sort of didn't pan out with corporate.
Wow.
But it was also a great balancing act financially, because touring's in the summer, corporates are in the January to April. So to keep money coming in, corporate was a really good like backup plan to touring.
That's really smart, everybody. That's winter. Go corporate.
There you go.
And then what brought you to where you are now, Solotech?
It's very much a company that was founded in Canada. So there's a lot of Canadians who work there, and so we all kind of knew each other in our years of touring. And they had a small presence in America. They had an office in Colorado Springs for a while that was called Audio Analyst, and they became part of Solotech. And then Nashville had this little tiny sales office kind of thing. They hardly had any gear here at all. But it started really blowing up. The Nashville shop, they kept buying bigger warehouses and, and so it was kind of that period where they were like, this is really starting to take off. We need a bigger staff. So they reached out to me, and I was, I remember right where I was in Planet Hollywood, Zappos Theater with Gwen Stefani doing residency, and I get the phone call. We want you to join the team. And I'm like, great, this is awesome. I said, this is February when I get this call. I said, can we like put a pin in this till September? Because this is what I'm doing from now till September. I was doing a Gwen South America tour, a Peter Frampton finale European tour, and then the Matchbox 20 in 2020 tour.
What a year.
So the year that turned out was COVID in a month later.
Wow.
My initial plan.
I didn't even.
I was trying to
2020, Nikki.
Yeah.
Remember what happened?
So February.
Wow.
So I finished the residency show, and we were on our way to Santo Domingo to do a festival with Gwen on March 11th. We flew down there, and then as we were checking into the hotel, the tour manager came up and said, "Festival's off. We're all flying home tomorrow."
Wow.
So March 12th, that was really when it all started to shut down. So
thank God you got back.
Yeah, I know.
States.
Yeah, I was a little worried for a minute. The
airport was. I can't even imagine. Yeah. It's crazy how it was just probably the craziest time in the airport ever to absolute ghost town then.
Yeah.
Whoa. What a great time to get a job offer that was stable.
And exactly, and obviously. Solotech is a touring company, and there was no touring. So I felt it just like everyone else for 6 months or so. But we came out of the Christmas season, and they said, okay, we're going to start ramping things back up. And I started January 11th of 2021. So it was a huge blessing to have a job. And with such a great company, and it really is an amazing company. Like it is I'm biased because I'm Canadian, but the Canadian vibe is very much there. There's a lot of really, really nice people that work there. So
good culture.
I've been very happy there. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. So you're doing that as your first job with them is at head of audio?
Yeah.
Because Solotech does audio, lighting, and video, correct?
Right.
Okay. So your role, head of audio, what does that entail?
It's partly a business development and sales role, and then a lot of it has to do with working with the UK branch, working with the Canadians, and just how do we change the design of our sub boxes on stage so they're more efficient, and they're how do we make our racks look better, easier to put gear in and take gear out, and so we work on sort of design and betterment all the time. So I and it's cool that I still get to mix shows a lot, because I get to go out there and see what other companies are doing and see what's good and what's bad, and bring that back. And then I manage accounts as well. So I'm some of the bands that I work with, Matchbox 20, I'm the account manager for for Matchbox 20. So
And yet when you're talking about sales, for people not in this industry, it's you're going to artist management or the artists themselves and basically selling Solotech as the vendor for their tour.
Exactly. Yep.
And how do you manage those relationships? Do you think that part of this industry is just so relationship heavy?
Yes, very much. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the production managers a lot, even more than maybe tour managers and managers, they want to have people around them that they've toured with before,
right,
who they know how to do this properly, and they can count on the gear, they can count on the crew people they're going to get. They're not willing to take a chance with maybe a newcomer vendor. So, like you said, relationships. Once they know they can trust Solotech to do a killer job, that we're cutting edge enough that if they want the new whiz bang LED panels, we're going to get them because that kind of thing.
Whatever they want, you're going to be
That's
on
right.
it. Wow. So you are still mixing for Gwen Stefani and No Doubt. Recently at Coachella, you were just doing that with No Doubt. Have you gotten to, you were supposed to be with Peter Frampton and Matchbox. Are you still able to go out and when do you do that? When do they ask you?
I'm kind of in a good place right now where Matchbox is doing a bunch of one-offs this year. So it's like,
Love.
Hey, we're doing a festival in St. Paul, and we're going up to Toronto in 2 weeks and doing a festival there. Gwen Stefani's doing one-offs, private events, things like that. So it's like I'm in the office, Monday to Friday. The next Wednesday I leave and do a show and fly back, and it's actually a really good schedule. Now the Matchbox tour last year was definitely. That was a tough one because
talk to me.
I'm trying to still manage my job, my 9-to-5 job. So I'm up early in the tour bus doing Zoom calls on the laptop.
Oh my gosh!
And then running in to set my gear up, and then band will be here in 2 hours. Back to the Zoom calls, and then so it was
no sleep.
No, not much sleep.
Wow.
But luckily I don't need much anymore.
Well, there you have it with this. Incredible. So want to talk about the book that you wrote. You also won a Parnelli Award for Front of House Engineer of the Year in 2013 for your work with Journey. Mm-hmm. Hello.
I know.
How did that recognition feel, and how did that impact your career?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's so corny thing to say, but just to be nominated, and then I got nominated again last year for Matchbox. I did not win, but a very worthy
nomination.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that was very, very cool to be nominated for that and to win it in 2013. And
how long were you with Journey?
2 tours, 2012 and 2014. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think I might have seen that. That was one of my first concerts when they were with Cheap Trick and Heart.
Nope. So that wasn't
okay, it might have been right before. Never mind.
But no, it was
it
was amazing. I mean,
wow.
I clearly remember doing some rehearsals without all the gear, and then we did some rehearsals with gear in the first venue that we played at. And then the first night, the crowd's in there, and I'm mixing faithfully, and I'm like going, again, one of those moments, is this really happening? Like one of the bands I worked for in Canada was a Journey tribute band.
Oh.
So I had like mixed all these songs, with the bar, cover band, and then I'm actually there mixing.
Now you're hearing the real deal.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Even with the new edition,
yeah.
I mean that's still the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean anyways, wow. And then you go into really having a passion for education and teaching at Belmont University here in Nashville, and then writing a book on professional sound reinforcement techniques. Okay, let's get into that. And then articles you've written for Live Sound Magazine and Church Sound Magazine. Let's get into this book and where you felt that passion of wanting to educate others.
That was late 90s I started. And I used to carry this little, the little spiral memo book that's about this big, carry it around in my back pocket. And I started jotting down things that I noticed that I did every day. Like, hey, to make the vocal sound cleaner, take this frequency out of the low mid and add this little bit on the high frequency, and it's going to cut better. And I was like, I should just start writing down the little tips and tricks of things that I do. So the original title of the book was Mix Memos. That was what I had
Love that.
called it. And they changed it to Professional Sound Reinforcement Techniques, which is like, oh my gosh, really? But anyway, it is basically just a collection of tips and tricks of things that work for me. Maybe not for everyone, but these things, over the years of doing it, I found that these things always helped. And then when I got asked to write for Live Sound Magazine, I basically took all of those old tips and tricks and, hey, I still do those same things, but it's kind of different now because I'm, got a digital mixer instead of an analog mixer. And so a lot of the articles that I wrote are kind of a reboot of the old tips from the book. So.
And I'm sure with technology, it just you have to keep, updating all of your tips and tricks. So I'm sure so many still ring true in the book.
Yeah.
But then article, hey, get a blog, or you could write some blogs for gigs. I don't know.
There you go.
Very cool. And then you have taught at Belmont. What do you like training the new people, the new people coming up in this industry, and what's your biggest advice for them?
I am a fundamentals guy. Like everything that I do on the mixing board, the way I approach tuning the whole sound system, because that's kind of the biggest part of the job, mixing front of house, is you have hundreds of thousands of watts of power and 80 sub bass speakers, and keeping it all in control and frequency balanced. If you can get that part of it right, then your mix on the board kind of just goes to the speakers and sounds right. If the PA tuning is out of balance, if there's way too many highs and not enough lows, you have to make a lot of huge changes on your board to make that work. So if you can tune the PA the same every day, whether it's your touring PA or if it's a different brand, different festival, different club to a theater to, if you can kind of get a sort of a template frequency tuning for the sound system, your mix will always translate. So, I very much teach. That's lesson one of the first class we had was on system tuning, and then from there, I kind of disappointed the students a lot by not having these like old wise guy, guru. I used this special compressor and this special EQ. I taught very, very simple techniques, Get the gain set right, turn the high pass filter up, which is the low cut basically. So you want to turn that up to where you get rid of the rumble in a vocal, like, and turn it up in the sound system, and it's usually about right. There's a million plugins, and there's all kinds of technology now that can do amazing things, but a lot of engineers get really stuck in trying to fix things by adding some plugin to it, where a lot of the best techniques to get a good sound are just super simple. So I try to instill that in the students and
back to the basics.
Yeah, and convince them by demonstration that it actually works.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure also with new technology of like, oh, well, this is a quick fix.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Like, I mean, my generation, millennials and younger Gen Z, are we oftentimes looking for that real quick fix?
Yeah.
Instead of just getting all that right. No,
yeah.
It's really good to hear.
Yeah,
good
very
to
much.
know. We're pretty impatient. Okay, this is because I'm curious. When you get into a rental car and you start playing the radio or you start playing, your music on Spotify, I am always annoyed with how the last person mixed it. Do you ever, if you're going to set your car stereo, do you like the way that they have it from, the manufacturer, or do you like the bass louder? How do you do a car?
Well, I don't listen to any music in the car. Ever.
Hold up.
Yep. I don't. I just don't.
That's the best place to listen.
I know it is.
No, it's
but
not.
I'm a terrible singer, but I like to sing in the car.
Oh.
Strangely enough. But yeah, I don't. Now, when my kids are, this is how I actually find out who all the cool artists are now. Is my kids, say, "Oh, check this one out, Dad," and it's like some amazing new artist. I think car stereos, just like PA systems, have gotten to be pretty good now. Like
Okay.
you just turn them on. Let's say, like you said, brand new rental car. No one's ever driven it before. It's probably going to sound pretty close.
Yeah, and you are driving in silence.
I'm driving in silence.
Because you're preparing those ears for the real deal. I said that the car is the best place to listen. No, it is a venue with you. That's crazy. And is it because you just are, trying to quiet your mind?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I think the world is so loud, and even like airports now, there's TVs everywhere. There's always something playing. You go into the dentist's office and they've got, a cooking show on or something. It's always loud everywhere. And so the car to me is kind of, and I've got like a 25-minute drive down Hobson Pike from Mount Juliet to and it's just a really chill ride, and it's nice kind of way to start the day.
I think we all should be required to sit in silence for 25 minutes every day. I think that could really change some things. We have a few more minutes. Okay. I want to get into a couple rapid fire, and some of these questions aren't total rapid, but first thing you think of. So your first concert you ever attended?
I want to say it was Styx.
Nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, your favorite after show food?
In-N-Out Burger.
Agreed. Yes. Your favorite venue to work?
I love my home hockey rink now in Vancouver. We started the Matchbox tour there. And
that's awesome.
Rogers Arena in Vancouver. We just had such a magical show, and it sounded really good in there. And the one in Edmonton also sounds fantastic. But there are a few good ones, and there are a lot of bad ones. Oh my!
Can we talk about your least favorite venue?
Am I going to offend anyone? The Charlotte Amphitheater.
In Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yes.
My home. PNC.
So you
the Verizon?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
And why?
It's just and I've never been able to figure it out after all these years, the dimensions, how high the roof is or whatever. I don't know what it is. Like concrete, because amphitheaters, they got to wash the beer off real fast,
Totally.
Right? So the seats are plastic, the ground is concrete, the metal roof. It just sounds terrible in there. It's so dark. It sounds like this.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so that one, every time I go back, I'm like, I'm going to beat you today. And there's one in New Jersey, the Garden State Arts Center.
Heard.
I think that's a PNC as well now.
Okay. PNC.
Yeah. Same thing. It's like an arm wrestling match when I go back. Like, I got you this time. I got you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Now it really could only go up. That's where I saw Journey for the first time. Was at that venue. And that saw them in Nashville, and it really was insane. Okay. Who is the most inspiring person you've met in your career?
When I was with Extreme in '94, and one of those huge festivals, I went backstage after the show to say hi to the guys and kind of like, how was the show for you guys? How did it feel? I walk in, and Brian May from Queen is standing there talking to Nuno and the band guys because of that. After Freddie passed, they did the big tribute to Freddie Mercury, and Extreme played a bunch of Queen songs, and
cool.
And it was so they had become friends, and Nuno knew that I started in this business because of Queen in the late '70s, just listening to their albums and stuff. So I walk in, I see Brian talk, and I catch Nuno's eyes, and I'm like, invite me over, So I went over and I said hi to him, and that was amazing. 1994. So
wow.
the next summer, I'm back there in the UK doing a Van Halen thing, and Brian and his wife come walking in the back gate, and I'm like walking out to the bus or whatever, and Brian walks through. I met him for 2 minutes, and he goes, "Hey, Jim."
No way.
And I'm like, come on. This guy is
Wow.
like Brian May, and he remembers a 2-minute meeting. He remembered my name. So,
wow.
and I've heard that from so many people that he is just, that's the way he is all the time. He cares about people so much, and just one of the most amazing guitar players ever. So.
What a cool story. Jeez. That is, what an incredible, I mean, if we all could just be that way.
Yeah.
And lastly, what makes it all worth it?
Well, I think that's a better question for like somebody flipping burgers down at the, like,
yeah, you get,
I mean, everything I've said, right? I mean, that makes it all, it's always been worth it. It's challenging to, to be a family person and to have this job. I advise, some of our new employees at Solotech or students who are we've had some Belmont students come to work at Solotech, which is amazing.
wow.
But so they start touring and they're super excited, and I just always warn, just know when to say when, because, sometimes you need to go home and you need to chill for a month and, reconnect with your family. So, but the rest of it is gold,
Wow. Well, if we have anyone who's listening to this podcast who's more interested of learning and asking questions, can we refer them to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Jim, thank you so much for being on the Gigs podcast.
Thank you.
You got to come back because we have so much more than we
Yeah, I
can
know.
really
You
get
got
to.
a lot of cards left.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.